on to my thesis topic on the solar radiation pattern of Townsville. My supervisor is Lynn. In the background there you can see the solar sunshine map of Australia. Townsville has a sunshine hours of roughly between 8 and 9 hours per day. So the background of my topic. Growing population has put in a high demand for energy, and particularly electricity. Most of the resources are non-sustainable, fossil fuels, coal, things like that. So renewable energy is required to sustain the current growth trends by reducing the carbon footprint that mankind has left behind. So this here is a graph of the current consumption of all energy in the world. It's from the PHP Bulletin predictions. So right now, it's at about 11 billion tonnes oil equivalent, and that's expected to rise up to about 17 by 2030. Right now, renewable energy makes up a very small portion, which we've seen by the green line here. So right now, it's not even 2 or 3%. Oil makes up the largest chunk, but that's going to run out in the near future. The sun radiates on the Earth at 1360 watts per meter squared, and this is the solar constant. But of that solar radiation, roughly 34% is just reflected straight back into space. But depending on the location of the Earth, the zenith angle, and time of day, it can change. 40%, 42% of that energy is used to warm the land and sea. 20% is used up in the water cycle for developing clouds, precipitation, things like that. And 0.022% is used in the photosynthesis, so allowing plants to grow. So this is a solar reflection map of the world, and Australia sits between 20 and 25% reflection. But that also depends on weather, primarily depends on weather. Townsville has a statistic of 320 days a year, so most of the time you get in the full 8-hour sunshine days, sunshine hours per day. The data that I've been able to find, originally it started with one source, which is the 1970s estimation. So from that I found meteorological data, data from the Solar Energy Handbook, and also information from the Bureau of Meteorology. But these are all estimations. Each source has varying accuracy, just based on the parameters they use. So the Bureau of Meteorology, they use things like humidity, temperature, cloud cover, cloud albedo, just for things to estimate more accurately. So let's see the graph account of the meteorological data. At the moment, Townsville sits 19.26 degrees south relative to the equator, which is snowball by this line. So my testing ran from June to August, and the June megajoules per meter squared per day is approximated to roughly 24. Similar research gives you a good insight into what you need to do. The research that I found was from Abu Dhabi, which ran over a 2-year period. These readings were taken on a minute-by-minute basis every day until the 2-year period had been concluded. There's also experiments done in the Northern Territory based on solar panel performance in hot, humid weather. A bit of equipment. This is a handheld pyrometer used to measure flow of solar radiation. It's not a very accurate piece of equipment. It's more to get a rough estimation of solar panel efficiency. In measuring the sun, there was 2 different measurements taken with this device. The first one is holding the pyrometer flat, so the sun was at an angle, the pyrometer. But this was a bit of a problem, as the solar panel has lossy finish. A a lot of the solar radiation got reflected straight back. I've then held the pyranometer flat in relation to the sun. So all the direct beam radiation that hits the solar panel would be absorbed. So this would increase the reading by about 200 to 300 watts per meter squared, which is a really big deal to get accurate information. The bioheliometer measures direct beam solar radiation. It's got two peak sights on the top, here and here. It works similar to the peak sights of a gun. So you let the light from the sun travel in the first peak sight, and it has to hit the dot on the back peak sight to get an accurate reading. The difference between direct and diffuse, the pyranometer measures direct and diffuse, while the pyranometer only measures diffuse, direct, sorry. So all solar radiation starts off as direct. As it goes through the atmosphere, as an example of clouds, the direct beam is broken up to smaller diffuse pieces of solar radiation in different directions, different magnitudes. So the direct beam travels through the clouds. A lot of it is broken up into diffuse, which is dispersed at different angles, and also along the atmosphere and back into space. The data logger, this here was hooked up to the bioheliometer to measure data as it didn't have a display screen. Originally, it was quite difficult to hook up. The manual was about 300 pages long. But it's got a power source to the left here. So you get positive link terminal that's obscured by the photo. And also you have your four nodes that you hook up, your temperature, maximum, minimum, and your current positive and negative to code positive, negative, and your temperature nodes. That took a measurement at a 1 second interval. I did these testing every hour over a 3 month period. Not every day was measured due to time constraints and weather conditions. Most measurements were taken starting at 9 AM and concluding at 4 PM. As I mentioned, not every day was measured, but this has led to a lot of inaccuracy in the data. This is just a quick graph of the June data for the first 4 days that I've done. As you can see, the data is very similar. It never drops below 600 watts per meter squared, and it never goes above the 1,000 watts per square meter threshold. This here is for direct solar radiation, which is used primarily for solar panel efficiency calculations. The estimation process I use to check my practical data is first one is for the direct solar radiation. It's got very different parameters. Sorry, this one here isn't yet right. And this is diffuse. So there are different parameters. Solar zenith angle was one of the major components of this test. So the solar zenith angle is in relation to the sun and the earth. It's measured by the 90 degrees pointing up, and the angle that the 90 degrees opposite angle makes with the sun is the zenith angle measurement. It also contains other parameters such as reflective parameters of dust, oxygen, ozone, carbon dioxide, and water vapor, and also the scattering effects of air and dust particles in the atmosphere. This here is the theoretical and practical data comparison. As you can see, the middle section of the day, the hottest part between 10 and 2, is very similar, but they diverge quite heavily at 9 AM and 4 PM. This here is a 38% difference, which is very high, but overall the whole calculation, there's only a 10% difference in the theoretical and practical data. The data comparison of the 6 sources that I've found. The most notable differences is the 1968 data, bomb data, and the solar handbook. They're all very similar, whereas the neurological data, practical data, and theoretical data are similar but a lot higher. This here is partly because these data sources don't take into account weather effects, day-to-day that. There has been a previous research done in Townsville for the solar installation. Rough measurements were done, and they found it was roughly 5.8 kilowatt hours per meter squared per day. So my data ranged from 4.6 to 7.8 kilowatt hours per meter squared per day, but the overall average, taking all 6 data sets into account, was 6 kilowatts per meter squared per day. The theoretical and practical data sources were very biased towards higher results, as I said earlier, because of weather conditions that were neglected, and I did not test on 30 days. The BOM Solar Energy Handbook in 1970 estimates incorporate weather parameters into the data, which are low those compared to the measured data. This is just a outline of why every day needs to be measured. So it starts off with a bottom sun, and then a little cloud pass over to reduce the direct beam solar radiation to testing. And then the cloud might go away, thing will happen again, go away, cloud will happen again. And then in the afternoon it might rain, so your measurements are severely hindered. As an example, for the application of this research, most houses have a 250 square metre floor space. The roof is set at a different angle, so there's a lot more roof space compared to floor space. And there's average power consumption of a council house is 40 kilowatt hours per day. Per day. So yeah, the average efficiency of a solar voltaic cell right now is about 15%. So a standard house should be able to run up a 40 square metre solar panel setup on a house. So there's still quite a lot of space there for spare solar panels and stuff like that. The roof isn't really used for anything other than just to shield from the sun. So it could be used in a lot better ways. Future work on this topic. Future work needs to be done to get better results. Measured data is very biased, just because I didn't measure on cloudless days. I only measured on cloudless days. The measurements need to be done in a similar fashion to the Abu Dhabi testing, taking minute data over a 2-year period. Any questions? Yeah.
How accurate your equipment?
How accurate is my equipment? The parameter is probably the most accurate one you'll find. The accuracy of my data is questionable because I did not take 30 days into account for the measurement. So the equipment itself is perfect. It's just my approach to it was a bit off.
Did you do any calibration before using?
I was all pre-calibrated before I received it.
The environment reflection due to water vapor.
Yep.
So did you measure humidity?
No. There was just a table of reflective coefficients that I found values from the previous study, from the equations that I showed earlier.
So what do you think is the gap between your theoretical data and the practical data? It might be due to the humidity or other reasons?
The main gap there I worked out to be is the angle of incidence of the solar radiation hitting the measuring device. The theoretical data does not take into account that I pointed the equipment straight at the sun, so I'm getting a lot higher readings than just having a measuring device placed directly on the ground.